Hi guys, I'm Tracy. Thank you for joining me today. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing demos, reviews of the more recent face brushes that I got. So the ones that I got, the last 2 months since the holidays. I've had a little time to use them, so I thought I would share with you guys the feedback, some feedback that I have, and also do a little bit of Japanese society, talk a little bit about how the brush makers fit in the feudal caste system that they had, and yeah, pretty much go from there. So here are the face brushes that I'm going to talk about. I'm trying to keep this fairly short, so let me first start with this one, the Bisiodo BP2. This is my most recent Bisyodo brush, and it took me a while to start using this, but what I've been using it for is bronzer, to get cover a big area like on the forehead, and then use it on its side to kind of create some definition by the cheeks. And I haven't really tried it for much else, so that's pretty much what I've, my feedback. I'm not so sure it's the best for bronzer, and I don't know, I'm kind of lost with this one as far as what place that this brush has, in my makeup routine. I did want to do some side-by-sides in case you guys are looking for a Bisyodo powder brush. So the BP2 is most similar to the BC1. You know what? I'm going to put them below. I don't put the labels on these because the handles are so beautiful. So I'll list them in the description, and hopefully you guys can understand it better that way. But the one it's most like is the BC1, and it's just a longer and wider version. But I still use the smaller one more. I use this for blush and bronzer, and I haven't had this too long, but I did want to show you guys how it has changed, because I did wash it, and I've used it once since it's been washed, so it just looks a little dirty. But that's, so far what I have experienced with this brush. I'll show you guys in comparison to the BH1 right there, and then the BH, I think this is the BH3. I'm sorry if it's not. I'll put everything down below. So that's kind of what you could expect as far as size goes. But anyhow, I'm very glad to have added this to my collection, and a lot of you guys know this line is one of my favorite brush lines. Now I'm going to talk about the Hakuhodo G5545. So this is the mixed hair, squirrel hair, and goat hair. And when I first got this, I said I was a little disappointed because it wasn't as dense and as fluffy as I thought it would be. Really only had about a week with it. And what I like about it is that you could pat the blush and then afterwards, buff it. And it does really provide that kind of smooth sheen finish, which I usually use the Hakuhodo Z8 to get that effect, but this one did that. So I do think if you are kind of in a pinch, you have this and you don't want to go dig for a finishing powder brush, this might work just fine, and it's got that angle so it could fit into these small areas if you want to just smooth everything out. I haven't used it with finishing powder, but the more I use this brush, the more I appreciate it. So that's the Hakuhodo G5545. Now I wanted to talk about the Hakuhodo S113, the black version. So, this is a highlighter brush, and I used it for highlighter, and that's it. And it just dawned on me that this might be actually a very good under eye powdering brush. It's kind of shaped like the airbrush a little, and the hairs are pretty long, so it's very soft on the skin, but it works fine for highlighter. I don't think this is necessary for highlighter. I think there's other brushes that work just as well, if not better. But it's a beautiful brush, and it's, you know, it is new, so I'm going to continue to experiment with this one. Now the next one is a brush that I get a lot of questions about, and so I wanted to address some of those by featuring this a little bit more, and that's the Hakuhodo B512. This is another mixed hair brush. I've had this one for a little bit longer. So I use this for bronzer, sometimes for blush, but one of you asked me how it would work with finishing powder, and I tried it and it worked fine. I used the Dior Powder No Powder. It did pick up a pretty decent amount. That powder is kind of hard to pick up, but this one, it did that. And it was fine. I mean, you know, it's nice. It can kind of fit under the eyes pretty well. But I have a brush that I like even more for finishing powder that I got more recently. So I wanted to show it to you guys though. It is a very beautiful brush, and it is pretty, if you compare it to the last one I talked about, it is denser and there's just a lot more hairs. So that's kind of what threw me off when I got this one, because I think they're about the same price range, and so I was expecting it to have a similar density as this one, but it's okay. It's, you know, it's different than from what I have in my collection. But this angled one is a beautiful brush, and I do highly recommend this one. Now I'm going to talk about the Sonia G Master Face. This was the most impressive brush that I got in the last, you know, couple months, and I've only used it for the Dior powder. Let me think. I think I did use it for the Hourglass finishing powder, and it worked great for both. I'm not sure what, I know a lot of people use this for bronzer. I just haven't had a chance yet because I've been testing so many other brushes, and I have not washed this yet. I really was torn between washing it yesterday, but I've been liking it so much like this. I don't want it to change. I love this so much. It's so good at picking up that powder, and it creates just this smooth surface on your skin. And you know, I need all the help I can get when it comes to that. So I'm really enjoying this one. And really briefly, I just want to mention the J509. I'm finding myself not really using this brush a whole lot. This is something like I would maybe consider selling. It's a beautiful brush. It's just this type of brush is not something I reach for in general. It's, you know, the long hairs, and it's pretty dense. But if you're looking for a fluffy, dense powder brush, I would say this is probably one of the best ones you can get. And I don't know, I'm not sure how I feel about this one yet. All right, so now I'm just making sure I got everything, and I'll talk about the eye brushes another time. I don't want this video to be too long, but I wanted to discuss kind of some interesting facts about feudal Japan. So Japan remained a feudal society much longer than a lot of the other countries in Europe, because they pretty much isolated themselves from the rest of the world for about 200 years. It was called the Tokugawa period, and it ended, it started, I think, right around the turn of the 1700s, and then it went until almost 1900. I'm not sure exactly, but kind of that 200-year period. They let very few people into the country. They didn't trade a whole lot. And people that left the country weren't allowed to come back. And so they were pretty strict about keeping their country, you know, by itself. Anyhow, they had a 4-tiered class system. So the top class, of course, were the daimyo, which were the lords, and the samurai, which were their protectors. The second class, very interestingly, were the farmers and the laborers. So it's usually not that way. They're usually at the bottom of the hierarchy, but they were considered the second. And then the third were the artisans. And then the fourth, the last tier, were the merchants. So after the first, the second, third, and fourth, that's kind of backwards from what most countries were like. I'm not sure how that really transpired in society, but that was how they kind of set things up, because the ruling class didn't want competition from the merchants and the more, savvy citizens of their country. So, I've never lived there, so I don't really know how the society handles discrimination and how much of this type of system still is present. I mean, the society has changed so much, but I know a lot of times even modern day hierarchies are still kind of in place even after hundreds of years. But there is a type of discrimination that's unique to Japan, and I don't think it's very prevalent anymore, but I do hear sometimes, there's a channel I'm going to link down below. It's called Ask Shogo, and he talks about a lot of interesting Japanese society topics. Anyhow, there's a discrimination called buraku, which is the discrimination against people who touch blood. So like a butcher or like a mortician, because in the Shinto religion, blood is considered very dirty. So if you're someone that has to handle blood as a job, you're considered like the bottom of the bottom. So these people weren't even in the 4-tier class system. They were below that. And it kind of ties into fude, because there had to have been people like this to attain the animals and the hares. And I don't know for a fact, but I'm sure at some point the hares had to have come from animals in Japan, during that time when they didn't trade much with the world. They had to rely on, they had to be very self-reliant. But I've been kind of wondering, where did the brush maker fit in feudal society? I've also heard, I'm going to try to link as many of these articles down below so you guys could read it on your own. But I also have read stories of farmers that had to travel for work, and what they would do is make brushes on the side and sell them as they were traveling back home as a way to supplement their income. So maybe the brush maker was not really just a brush maker. Maybe it was a farmer or a peasant that needed to make some extra money and took it up and kept the tradition alive and passed it on to the next generations. I don't know. If anyone does know, let me know, but I couldn't find any more information on that. But I just thought it was a very interesting type of discrimination that you don't hear about anymore. And I just wanted to share that with you guys. So just to sum everything up, I would say of the face brushes that I talked about today, I didn't talk about the Buffer Pro because I did a whole video on that. So of the ones that I spoke about today, I'm going to pick a winner. Dun, da, da, da. It's not focusing. Okay, these are the contestants. The winner is Sonia G Master Face. This is just, I don't know, just such a beautiful brush. It's so dense, and it's just, I don't know, everything I was hoping it would be and then some. So I would say the winner of this batch is this. All right, so I hope you guys like this content, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye.